Holy man, Beth, we just like
Wow.
unpacked the SDGs. We had sustainable principles. We got 17 goals. We got how are we going to save this planet conversation happening today? Like, how did you feel about all this right now with Elaine?
I mean, I feel so uplifted. It's like we talked about the biggest of pictures right down to the smallest details of our own lives and our own love and how that expresses in the world around us. It really was. I did expect it to be kind of a conversation, just not necessarily technical, but very topical on the sustainable development goals. And it turned out to just sort of bleed into so much of humanity, just what it is to be a human being. It's very cool.
Which seems like how we achieve anything that's sustainable is getting in touch with
Yeah.
our humanness, right? Like what it
Mm-hmm.
means to be human, the capacity of a human. Obviously, we can be, from the conversations we had today, like with Elaine was saying, you can be ignorant
Mm-hmm.
in just the circumstances of life and not really knowing how to do anything, or maybe not having the willpower to do something because you're just stuck in your situation, but that we seem to be able to act and do something better, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I think we can do so much better, but it's a matter of whether or not people are, I'm not even going to use the word willing, but even able. Sometimes
that.
people are so, this is the unfortunate thing about our society because it is sick. And so sometimes people, and I'm putting myself in that box, I've been there before, where you just feel so overwhelmed by the circumstances of your own personal life that forget it. I'm not going to rinse out that dumb can and take off the label. I'm putting it in the garbage. I'm not
Or
even dealing with recycling. It's too many steps.
or I'm
You
having an
know,
emotional breakdown and I want to
yeah,
sit in the shower for 20 minutes and just cry, even though I
right,
know it's not
exactly.
sustainable, but
Exactly. I'm going to order
um
takeout and I'm going to take an hour long shower and it's all going to be in plastic.
yeah.
Sometimes you don't have the wherewithal, but for
Or the
those who are
infrastructure.
healthy enough to do so,
Yeah.
that's what can help support the people who are still getting there. Yeah, and if you have the infrastructure, if it's as easy as it can possibly be to be sustainable.
Infrastructure and
Yeah.
incentive, I
I'm not sure
imagine
how to
too,
make that
because like
happen.
what's the
It's maybe
incentive?
another podcast.
Yeah, what's the incentive to change really? Why if I'm already addicted to oil and in my plastic and my way of life and nothing, is really, I'm not experiencing much war or disease or anything. Why would I change? So incentives are also important. But how much is Elaine a gem? What was did you like about her conversation?
Well, outside of the fact that she has a huge life experience, in her career, first in finances and now with the UN, she has a huge breadth of information to share. But she also has a lifetime of wisdom and lived experience that we got to get just a little picture of today. So,
She's the
yeah,
example of somebody who I think lives the inner development goals and outer
yeah,
development goals, right? She's
yeah.
someone who's really working on her inner
Hmm.
world, which you see reflected in our conversation during this time, how loving
Hmm.
and kind and interconnected that she is, and quite spiritual too, which I loved. I always like talking to guests when they have a
Hmm.
spiritual, any kind of faith I have such respect for, because
Yeah.
obviously seeing things that don't exist is helping bring those things into reality, holding a space for them. So she's such a kind person and
Yeah.
has
I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's faith, right? I mean, obviously, faith and works go together. So she's working with the UN and they have the faith that these goals are achievable. And then they're using works to try to get there. I mean, it kind of goes together. It is a little bit spiritual when you stop and think about it.
It is. I think it was funny
Hmm.
because we were just chatting in the text about perfect day. It's Sunday, and it's like, let's talk about the sustainable scriptures. There's
Yeah.
17 chapters. They're called, get your planet together, get your people together, make them healthy.
I love that reference that she had to, where she said, well, we read these holy books or, like old texts, every religion has them. And it can be tricky. I know because right now I'm trying to teach a class about the Old Testament. It can be really tricky to try to liken that to our lives today, to try to extrapolate from like thousands of years ago and make it apply to what we have right now. But some of the deepest wisdom that comes out of all of those traditions, like love, are really, that's kind of the key to the success of these goals and improving our planet and our societies and ourselves and the whole thing.
yeah, what's interesting is just like the sacred text, this information in improving human beings has kind of been around for a long time. Democracy came
Hmm.
around, Then you had human rights in the 40s.
Yeah.
Recycling, I think, saving the planet's been on the horizon since the 60s even. I mean, it's been
Hmm.
a long time people have been talking about saving Mother Earth and being more connected. And but my real gem from today's conversation was Elaine's answer to her favorite toy, were like
Yeah. Yeah.
animals and living things, and they weren't stagnant things. And that kind of brings me back to Steven's, also a previous episode, of his favorite toy were people.
Or to be like Elaine and say, I didn't have a ton of toys, but I loved animals. There are animals everywhere. And I was a beekeeper and I was like communing with the chickens.
Elaine also was giving us this caveat of wisdom too today about just that the future, the future we want to stand in is the future where we don't have an SDG. It's like, yes, it's like,
That was a really good
it
answer.
was such a good answer.
For her to just be like, well,
We achieved
if
it.
the future is here, then I'm done with this and I'm moving on to some other project.
I'm gonna go like basket weave or
great.
like write a book or or read a book and just
Yeah,
chill,
yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be something?
Sit on the fruits of your labor. And I love, also speaking about scriptures, I think reap what you sow I use a lot, but also, by your fruits you shall know them.
Yeah.
Because like with any venture, any business, any person, it's so easy to see that what you're investing in, it's so simple to see what the fruits come out, if they're barren and they're destructive, or if they're creative and fruitful and delicious. So,
and isn't it great to see her and know that, like, here's an example of someone who, her fruits are ultimately changing our world on a completely different trajectory, so that the generations that follow us will have a beautiful place to live and have what they need to live on it.
What I like mostly is that her career reflects her early vision of the need to incorporate social responsibility, sustainability, and environmental concerns into the strategy of public and private companies of all sizes. I did not mention that in the bio in the beginning, but it's almost like a lot of people are kind of returning to, after all this business acumen, experience, and elevation in their own lives, there's a lot of return back to the basics of like, well, okay, now I'm here at the pinnacle. What do I do with this, awesome opportunity? Maybe it's time to shift the narrative, shift the whole conversation, and work on something really awesome. So I love that. And that also that she's doing it for her kids. That was cool.
Yeah, that was kind of sweet that she reflected on how obviously it's a laudable thing to do it just for the whole world, and it's like very altruistic, but it's different when it becomes personal, right? And it gives you